Welcome back, everybody. ContraDictions is back. Like we said, we're coming back. We're going to try to get this going as usual. So we're talking Sunday, January 24th. A lot of good games going on tonight. So hopefully you can watch us and enjoy the end of the last of the game here. Let me bring in my boys. Let's bring in Glennon real quick. How you feeling, Glennon?
What's going on, everybody? Happy Sunday. Hope everyone's had a great weekend. Yep, we are back, ready to get into this thing, man. So let's go ahead and get it cracking. Let's go ahead and bring in Kenny.
Hey, Kenny.
What's up? What's up? Tom Brady, the GOAT, done it again.
Are you surprised? I'm not surprised.
He didn't have that good of a game, though, man. He was throwing balls all over the place.
Which actually says a lot about Tom Brady to not have a good game and still beat Aaron Rodgers and company. So
before we get into politics, I want to hit this. I just want to be clear on something. Outside of possibly one season in 20 years, this man, Tom Brady, has never, put that to the side. He has never been the best quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah. Never.
Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers, Mahomes, Wilson, Brees for a season. Tom Brady, outside of the 1 year he had Randy Moss, was never the best quarterback in the league. So let that sink in that people will say he's the GOAT. So why is he the GOAT? Because leadership matters, which is a great segue for tonight.
And consistency.
So,
and I think that's a good point too, Kenny.
Yeah, like we were saying, leadership matters, and that's a great segue because now we got a new leader in the old White House going to lead this great country of ours, and that's basically what the show is going to be about tonight, boys. We got first 100 days. What's Joe Biden going to do for us? And we're going to weigh in on whether it's going to be a good thing or it's going to be a bad thing. So let's go ahead and start it off. What topic do you want to start with, Kenny, in this first 100 days?
Well, the first thing I was going to bring up is that I really like the First Step Act that Trump did. So I want to go over some things that I see in the Biden plan for strengthening America. And I want to challenge some of the things that he said. And it's hard because we talk about wanting to come together as a country. But the problems that come up is that what if my ideals and this other person's ideals are different for what we want for the country? Everybody thinks it's just like, oh, we don't get along. We can just get along. Well, if my favorite team's the Dolphins and your favorite team's the Bills, we may be able to not trash each other, but we're not going to be happy with the different results that come up from that game. So that's the same way I feel about it. And I wanted to address these things that they talked about because there was disparity discussions, and I wanted to get into some of that. So the first thing that I would say is he came out and talked about rooting out racial, gender, and income-based disparities in the system. I think he's lying. I don't think he cares about that. And the reason why I say that is because most people, I think, agree on some level that there's a racial disparity. We have the Fed numbers are that we have 30% of Hispanics in the federal prison system, but they only make up about 20% of the population, between 15 and 20, depending on how you group it. Black people, they are overrepresented. They're at 38%, and but
it's actually gone down, believe it or not. It was 44%. But
there you go.
But it still sucks either way.
Yeah. And then white people are at about 60, which is actually a little bit right around where their racial disparity should be if it was all equal. Now, here's the thing is it doesn't necessarily causation and correlation don't necessarily go together, but we can agree or disagree on how much that's off. But 93% of people in our federal penal system are men. 7% are women. Are men just naturally by that portion? Or is it possible that judges are looking at women and men and judging them very differently? And so I'd like to know you guys' opinion on that, because we all know certain people who have done the same thing as other people. They've been a woman, they've gotten probation, and that guy's served between 5 and 10 years. So
absolutely.
My issue there is why say his quote on his website for Strengthening America, he says he cares about equality, but does he only care about equality because right now there's a movement for Black equality, but what about sexism and what about the equality within that area?
Very good point. And I would like to think that somebody in his now administration would bring that up to him so that, he could tackle something like that. Because in my opinion, I believe that when he did make that statement, he was referring to, like you said, Kenny, more so racial disparity. I think he actually did use the term racial disparity at one point. So I don't
racial,
really
gender, and income based. That's what he said.
So I know you said that you think he's lying. I wouldn't really go that far to say he's lying, but I do think he is being a little bit disingenuous with that statement as a whole. In terms of the racial disparity and racial justice, that there's a movement going on, and it's a popular talking point right now. Let's be honest.
Not to interrupt you, I'm just going to throw this one thing in there. Yeah. I will apologize for saying the term lie if in the next 4 years I see him do one thing to address the disparity in the numbers of female versus men in the prison system. If he does one thing, I will apologize for using lie, and I will say disingenuous if it's a very small thing, and I'll say I was completely wrong if he does like a major piece of legislation. But even if he just brings it up, I will apologize on this.
I think what Glenn said at the point, though, he's basically bringing up the hot topic today and saying he will address it just to appease all the people that either voted for him or doubt him.
Well, I won't go that far. I don't think he's doing it just to appease anybody. Right. I won't go that far.
Nice ad.
It is a popular talking point, and I do think that there's a part of him that genuinely would like to talk to tackle these things. Is it going to happen? No, it's not going to happen. You can't legislate love. I'm sorry. In terms of racial justice or racial disparity, it's just not going to happen. In terms of the gender thing, though, that could be something that's a possibility, and that's a real possibility. We could actually see some changes there, some numbers, and it's a slippery slope for us as men to even talk about, because I don't want to seem like I'm sitting up here advocating like the women better be up 15%. You know what I mean? I don't want anybody getting locked up.
Man, it could destroy women's sports altogether, man.
Well, before we get into that, Glenn, here's my thing, right? As a, and I hate saying this, but as a black man, right? But as a black man, can't you see where the problem when it comes to discrimination is because when we start trying to pander to this box of a certain group, you end up ostracizing. So what I mean by that is, if we said, and we've talked about this before when we talked about legislation in terms of the penal system, if you do this crime, this is what you get. Then if you're white, black, female, tall, short, fat, skinny, pretty, ugly, it's the same.
It's the same. Absolutely.
You're going to have to deal with it at the police level. And I'm not naive enough to say that I've done enough research to say that it's not at these other levels, but it would take it out of the justice system. And I'm not saying you can give the judges no determining, but make that line thinner. You should not be able to give somebody 8 years and somebody else probation. No, I mean, for the same thing.
Well, let me ask you this, and just to kind of throw this out there, I agree 100% with what you just said. Now, it should be same all across the board. Do you think it should still differentiate on a state-by-state basis, though, like it does currently?
Well, currently, the numbers I was talking about at a federal level. I would hope transition to the state level, but I'm speaking in terms of federal, because those are the federal numbers. I don't know the state numbers. So
yeah, absolutely, it should be the same all across the board: male, female, black, white, yellow, brown. It doesn't matter, for sure. And I think that's one of the other major issues that this country has faced and is currently facing. I think now there's actually a spotlight on it, sort of highlighting this thing. And it's an interesting topic. I'll tell you what, he's got to, in terms of his first 100 days, what he talked about. And what he plans on doing, it's very ambitious. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot. I mean, if we just took any one of his points, that would be enough for 100 days in and of itself. But not only that, just to kind of go back to what Kenny was talking about, because I do think it's interesting. Women only occupying 7% of the space in the American penal system. Women break law. Like they do. Like they're breaking law, and not only that, but I'm trying to look up the numbers now as we speak. I think that there's got to be some sort of way to look at it in terms of the amount of crimes or the amount of prosecutions happening based on men and women. based on the amount of jail time they're being sentenced. Because like Kenny said, a lot of these women, they're getting slapped on the wrist, they're getting probation, even 2 and 3 times offenders. 2 and 3 time offenders, you know, they're getting 30 days maybe when somebody else is getting a year, 18 months, you know, for something petty.
I think I've looked it up before, and so I wish that I'd had this here, so I'll take the hit for not having the actual number. But the conviction rate difference is not 7%. Does that make sense?
It's not. Right.
Correct. So the convictions,
I don't even think it's 4%. Yeah,
it's the conviction difference is not that great of a difference, but your federal time is way. And here's the interesting point. This is not a misogynistic point, because taking these men out of the home is hurting the American family. It's hurting the women who are now left alone. It's hurting, not that they can't do it on themselves, for the feminists out there that might come after me with pitchforks and fire torches, but
as long as they're not tiki torches, we're good.
Well, there's no more MAGA, so I guess that's done. No, I'm just kidding. Total joke.
Well, that'd be nice.
But I think it's good for America, and that's why I think if we can do this, it's good for families. And I wonder if this is really going to be brought up, because some other things that he said that he is going to ensure fair sentences, but in that it said racial disparities and fair sentences. I want to make sure we're talking about fair sentences is also, like, I guess this is a good question to ask, but
like for all across the board, for everyone.
As Americans, can we say, is being sexist as bad as being racist?
Sure.
I mean, it kind of teeters the line. Look,
is it the same?
At the end of the day, if you're leading with hate, and if you're hating someone for something that they can't control, you can't control if you're born man or woman. You can't control if you're born black, white, Asian, mixed race, biracial. So, yeah, absolutely. I think there's definitely a discussion to be had.
And we can have, if we do the discussions on that, I want to see, because one of the other things that it says provide crime and provide opportunities for all. Hey, I'm down for that. Yeah. Reduce violence in our communities. I'm for that. It says support survivors of violence. Of course, I'm for that too. But it seems like a lot of the things that I saw, and actually going back, this was the strengthening America's commitment. But looking down the 100 list, a lot of these things are, you get a coupon, you get a free car, you get a free car. A lot of this stuff is I'm very concerned about what we're going to be spending for other countries. Paris Accord, getting back into oil agreements, because now that you're stopped fracking, where do you think the oil is going to come from? You think we're just going to all of a sudden, I'm going to drive a Prius tomorrow? My car still runs on gas. You're messing with the supply and demand curve. Gas prices are going to go up. Where are we going to start importing our gas from, guys? You want to say it at the same time? It rhymes with mina. Okay, so are we gonna? I mean, I have some real concerns about whether we're gonna go right back in the pocket of China, and I don't think it's a coincidence that their leader came out and had Biden all up shoved, tank deep in this dude's face. I mean,
let's move on to that topic. In his next 100 days, he's already shut down the Keystone pipeline, and I think there's. He already marked a bill saying that any new drilling on federal land is not allowed. Now, if you already have the permit, you can keep going. But if you're trying to apply for a permit to drill, no more. So how does that affect us now and moving forward? I'll let you guys discuss.
Well, I would say initially we're not going to really see any sort of, difference for the first 18 months to 2 years. It's really, these things take a while to catch up. I'll be honest, I don't understand the reasoning behind not allowing people to drill and not even allowing people to apply to drill here on American soil. I would like to think that it's not going to lead us back to tucking our tail in between our legs and begging China for resources, but that is a possibility. I will say this. I mean, we all saw, a few days ago, Vice President Harris swearing in those 3 guys, essentially turning over the Senate and the House to Democrats. But Democrats have a very slim majority in the House. Mm-hmm. So that's also going to have a lot to play in this thing. somebody's going to have to be buddying up with Mitch McConnell. And one thing I will say, not really directly on the topic, but I do think it helps, is that Biden, people have knocked him for it during the race, but Biden at the end of the day does have decades and decades of experience in the Senate. He has a reputation for being able to reach across the aisle, so to speak.
Money can make people do amazing things. Man, you grease that wheel moves, baby.
Well, and I'm not gonna. There's definitely corporations involved. There's definitely big business involved, big corporations involved. There's definitely money involved. There's pharma involved. So, and
he is an establishment. Whether you want to talk about Republican or Democrat, he's part of the establishment, which on one side is a good thing for if he wants to pass things that he wants to pass, because he has more relationships across the aisle. When Trump was here, it wasn't that, that's why it's funny. They try to play the left and right Republican Democrat game. He wasn't a part of the
money game.
So he didn't have those people who have the connections to do that stuff. And I want to speak out specifically.
Which is why I brought that up just really quick, because I do think that there is some sort of an ulterior motive in terms of not allowing people to drill on federal property.
And
on federal land, federal soil.
I want to point out something that you said and help people to understand this, because this is a lie that the Republicans tell. And I want to make sure that anybody that's out there that's viewing this show, I've talked to a couple people that, want to see this show. And I want to tell them real clearly about something, because this is something that is lied about all the time. They do it on both sides, but specifically the right does it more, I think. Having the Senate and the House and the presidency doesn't mean nearly as much as they say it means.
Right. That's exactly why I was saying that. Yeah.
You have to typically get 2/3 in the Senate. So unless you have an overwhelming majority, having the majority, it helps in a handful of situations if they were determining the presidency. But again, that's under I'm so tired of the rhetoric around the way people look through their eyes of racism and bigotry. And I'm going to wrap this into what I'm saying as far as politics is concerned, because people think, if we have 51 Republicans and 49 Democrats, and this person comes out and says it's going to be 51-49. Not everybody is so blind that way. People, you can be a Republican or a Democrat and have some different ideals. So there's going to be three or four people a lot of times on both sides. I was actually pretty proud. Now, I will say that, and I'd like your opinion on this too, because I don't know how much more down that road we can go. I think we both agree pretty much on the pipeline stuff. And this is kind of a side note.
And it's one of those things we're going to have to let play out too. That's something that, even though he's initiated it within his first 100 days, like I said, we're really not going to see what that's going to do.
Why do you think he terminated it though? What's the?
He said he would.
Yeah.
Okay. So he's basically saying, "Hey, look, I followed through with what I said I was going to do." But I don't.
Let's be honest. Trump executed a lot of what he did through executive orders, and so, ironically, or unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, Biden's going to have to do the same thing. And he's got 15 executive orders on the docket right now already.
The Keystone one was an executive order.
Right, exactly. And so, in a good way, what it does, it makes the White House look like they're doing a lot. America's watching right now, and I think. There's been a lot of uncertainty just in politics in general. I think a lot of people want to at least feel like we have a White House that's moving quickly, and that's what executive order is doing.
The public affairs reason was, hey, climate. The climate's in a bad way right now. We don't need to be doing this. So it had to do with the climate. He shut it down for some reason.
Let's be real clear on something, and I think we'll all agree on this. And this is regardless of who's in there. The first 10 days, these are donors, okay? You're joining that because somebody who had energy dumped a whole bunch of money into your campaign for renewable energy. So somebody who had a bunch of money in your campaign, I'd love for somebody to do the research and find out who, right?
Right. I'm going to give you 20 mil.
That's going to be difficult.
I'm gonna give you
It's
20
difficult to figure that out because
Because all the
all
criminals in there don't want us to know on both sides.
Yeah,
of
but
course,
within the
there's
first 100
anonymity
days,
on both
you
sides.
hack the pipeline.
But I think you can deductively reason and you go, first of all, he says he's going to have a path for 11 million undocumented workers.
That's another one, right?
Right. So he signed that. And here's what's interesting about that. So he's capitulating to that group. But here's where that shoots you in the foot, right? It shoots you in the foot because there's a group right now in Honduras that are coming to America and they're marching through the streets on the way here. And what are you going to do? If you stopped building on the border. So if we haven't secured the border, then what are you going to do when they get here, Captain Humanity? He also signed an order to not separate parents and kids. So what do you think that's going to draw in? I bet you those people are going to be holding their little kid, right?
Oh, I won't even be there.
And they're going to be saying, hey, I have my kids. You got to have us being together.
I think the argument on the other side is that since when is a wall the end all be all in terms of border security? I think that's the other argument.
Only works for inaugurations.
And the truth is that.
Go ahead. What did you say? Walls only work at presidential inaugurations.
Well, here's the deal.
With 25,000 troops that's guarding it too. That helps.
People know that walls work, okay? But the point is that walls alone don't work. It's
right.
You have to secure the border, which is what was discussed. People always wanted to point to the wall because it's part of the border. But securing the border matters. And we have to do that in order to then you can allow 11 million immigrants in, and we can debate that at a different time. But if you want to do that, and you do that before the border that number is irrelevant because then this whole group comes in. Then what do you do? And then it's going to be, are you compassionate? Well, every single person there's going to have a sob story. If somebody knocked on your door and said, hey, can I come in, dude? I'm poor, I'm broke. We don't know whether they're that or a rapist. We don't know. And so it's going to be sad when these things come up and get right in the face, and we'll see how it all plays out. But I wanted to go through some of the other things that he did sign off on. He repealed the restrictions in the Middle East, the movement between there. We'll see how that plays out because what's funny is sometimes you don't know whether it kept you safe or not, but we haven't had a terrorist attack here.
Right.
A while. So if one happens after you've lifted these restrictions and we find out somebody came over on that plane, then all of a sudden it's going to stoke bigotry. And I hope that isn't what happens. I hope people can not always connect things to race and gender and national origin. And one of my things about that I want to speak on, you have the Dr. Rachel Levine, right? She is a transgender born man. I'm just saying that so that people understand right now. She's Rachel, a woman, right? That she's, that's her name. And and I think we should do a whole thing on the transgender, where we're at with all that stuff, because there's a lot of points that are not hateful that I think should be discussed. But my point is what sucks is we're in such a pandering society right now. What if Dr. Levine is the greatest doctor? I am, by all means, if she is the greatest we got, I want her to be the director of health. Yeah, but I have to immediately go, hold on a second. Are they shoving this down my throat to try to pander to the money that the LGB just shipped out to her or to Biden? So, and the same thing with the National Security Advisor? Was that the National Director of Security? Lloyd Austin, Secretary of Defense, my bad. So General Austin, right? He's a black gentleman. By all means, if he is the best, awesome, dude, be the best. I'm all for it. I just don't want to hear that you interviewed one black guy and took him because that makes you earn a couple points, votes with the black community. Luckily, I'm happy about the Senate confirmed him 93-2. Yep, 93-2.
Oh, he's definitely qualified.
For sure. Well, again, here's the thing, though. Be honest. How much did you know about him before you heard about him? I know a lot about military. I didn't hear about him. I don't know who this dude is.
I mean, I think he was obviously vetted, and when you look him up, I mean, his credentials are bar none. I mean, he's definitely deserving. I think it's an interesting question, and we'll never know it if he was the only person that got interviewed or not. Right. I don't think so, but we don't know. We'll never know. We'll never know those things. But in terms of his credentials and credibility, oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I'm going to stand behind both of these people, Dr. Levine and General Austin. And my hope is that they do a wonderful job for us. So we'll see. But I will tell you, Glenn, and I'd like to know your thoughts on this. What I noticed was a bunch of countries that I don't have a lot of faith in were trying to track.
Like which ones? Like which ones? Okay.
China, Iran, were the first quotes that I saw where they kind of took shots at Trump on the way out. There was somebody else that was in NAFTA that had been complaining about the money. I can't remember which country they were from. But then I first of all, I want to give a shout out to Tokyo because I have no problem. Tokyo came out with a nice message that was very pro-United States, pro-Biden. He's our president. I'm okay with that.
Right.
When you take a shot at somebody leaving, and then I go, hold on a second. We have had 4 years of almost no war in this country. Like, I don't want our society to forget that we finally had an anti-war president, and I'm kind of hoping that we can kind of keep that going. I'm not real excited about the idea that all of a sudden people are going to try to make us feel bad, so all of a sudden we start funding, because that's why I feel like they're kissing our ass, right? China's kissing our ass. They want these restrictions dropped. You have these other countries kissing our ass because they didn't have our money. And so
there was a lot of, in terms of Trump's president.
was one of the organizations. You guys want our money. That's why you're kissing our butt now. Like, I'm concerned. Yeah. I don't want to see that. If Biden wants to earn their respect and say, hey, we're going to join this again, but we're going to pay our fair share, hey, I'm cool with it. But don't come in there and repay like we were doing before under all the other previous presidents, Republican or Democrat. We are not the funding organization for the rest of the world. Especially,
I agree. I agree. That's one thing that I agree.
These are Biden's first 100 days. You cannot fund this. And I didn't even get to my point about the plan for the defense. This is $40 billion in criminal reform.
Well, not only that, but the stimulus bill, the immigration bill. I mean, the stimulus bill is like $2 trillion. This definitely costs money. Definitely costs money, and he hasn't really specifically gone over how this is going to be funded. But I don't believe, and you did bring up a point. Yes, we can technically say that under the Trump administration, there were no wars going on. He was an anti-war president. But people did die. That's, I don't want to make it sound like it's inevitable because it's not. I mean, there was just a lot of, not necessarily proxy war, but people were shot at in Iran. There was like,
there's always
Cold War-ish sort of things going on.
Little stuff going on. I'm just saying.
We've had submarines shot at during his presidency. We were close. We were close. We were very close to war. And I'm not comfortable giving Trump all of the credit for a war not happening.
I will 100. I don't think that's fair because.
Yeah, if he can take all the blame,
will tell you there's such a thin line between war and diplomacy. It's such a very thin line because the minute you go and try to be overly diplomatic, they'll try to take advantage of you.
Take advantage of you, for
exactly.
Sure.
So you have to be in this, and I know people don't like it, but the truth is, and Glenn, how many people said we were going to be in all these wars because Donald Trump says dumb shit. Now, we can argue whether what he said was dumb, but a lot of people
speculated that. Yeah, I'll give you that.
It did work, and they didn't. The biggest guy on the block was like, do something, I'll punch you in the face. And the other person was like, yeah, I'm going to do it. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, he's going to punch you in the face. And then they're like, he didn't punch him. So
a lot of these are being passed to actually help Democrats in future polls, like cities gaining statehood, DC. And I think there was another one too they were talking about that are mostly.
How do you guys feel about that, by the way? Let's just kind of talk about that DC getting statehood. How do you guys feel about that? Because I think it should remain
what's wrong?
Here's the deal. I almost feel like, and I don't like getting into conversations that I haven't well researched to come up with a real firm thing. So right now, where my stance would be and actually I'm going to get to some comments that Rob Ryan and Lark Wood put on the comment board in a second. But my thing is either all of them have to be given statehood. So I'm talking about Puerto Rico. I believe it's Guam.
Right.
And
there was another one too. There was a big one.
Is that the three of them?
Yeah, I think it was Puerto Rico. Like you said, Puerto Rico, DC, and I think there was one. I thought there was one more. I can't.
I could be wrong. Google Guam. Somebody can tell in the chat section.
Yeah.
But my point is to me, it's kind of an all or nothing thing. Like, you want to add them both, cool. I know some Republicans are like, no, because they're like, those are Democrat strongholds. But oh, that's hilarious. Somebody's got the Bernie Sanders, and I gotta be. Come on, Glenn, you gotta. That is the best meme, and probably like Crying Jordan is. That's the best meme since Crying Jordan. This Biden thing. I've seen.
Look, hey. When I saw him on the cover of the Wu-Tang album, I was no more good. I was no more good.
Out of control, dude.
Dude, the memes on that are hilarious.
Hey, Lark, really quick. Lark had placed a question. He had put up a question about me. I guess I'm wearing a polo shirt, and got a Burberry scarf hanging on the back of the shirt because I got I got a blazer. I usually keep a blazer hanging on the back of my shirt. We can go ahead and put the question up. I do think it's interesting, which is kind of crazy because at first I didn't realize that I do represent the everyday man. But you know, I think I should. I mean, why not? At the end of the day, we're all American citizens. You know,
but you
do
can't
people want nice things for
you? I mean,
what's that?
The good thing is,
you can't control how people see you.
Of course not. Of course not.
Well, I would assume what Lark is saying, and I think is interesting, is that the reality is you look at the three of us, and I think you could come up with about 50 different demographics we covered. Now, we don't have a female on here, but between, you know, our commitment to the gym or our military backgrounds or our business ownership or our white or black or tall or short,
marriage, fathers, all that
divorce,
sort of stuff.
all those different things. I think, you know, Glenn's always been the best dressed out of us. Fred's close. I've always been trailing in a distant third. That's okay.
I guess we all have our different styles, if I will. The question I would ask Lark is, you know, not necessarily what would you prefer, but what do you think would be better if I'm supposed to represent the everyday man? I mean, would it just be better if I were in a t-shirt? I didn't even realize my thing is in the back, but you know, some stuff hanging on my chair. But you know, it kind of goes into, you know, am I trying to fit an image or a stereotype, or is this? I'm in the shitty office today. I'm not in the nice office. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I think a good thing is that we are who we are.
Right.
I'm not against us dressing up for the show, but this is actually who we are.
This is actually who we are. Yeah. This is us on a typical Sunday watching football.
I wear suits. I'm in t-shirts because I wear t-shirts, and Freddie's always in a ripped sleeve shirt, which I am too a lot of times. And I've actually not done that, but Fred's either in a hoodie or a ripped off sleeve shirt. So, you know. I want to say something else that Lark did bring up. He is from Pennsylvania. So is much of my family. So I wish my family would watch the show. But it says that, you know, their state is a disaster. She isn't good. I think is what he's saying. Our state is a disaster of poor planning, large part and because of her. Now, later on, Rob brought this up, and I did know this, that she was one of the people that, and this is where I want us to call people out. And this is the same exact reason why I did not vote for these idiots down in Georgia, right? I held them accountable when they took money and then they lied about taking money and then they did dishonest things with money. I'm going to call them out, Republican or Democrat. And so when this lady, what she did is she made homes take these COVID patients, the nursing homes, and then she went and took her mom out of the nursing home.
It makes no sense. It makes no sense.
Insider trading. She already knew.
Now, but not for me, right? Or for thee, not for me.
Right.
That's not going to be good. Anybody even know who? I don't know who Daniel Wincup is, but he thinks he'll wear somebody out, but he'd have to. His polo is busted. I don't know who that is, but good luck. Put some content on that it's worth reading.
Yeah, man. Yeah, keep them coming, guys.
Yeah, I don't think it matters what anybody wears. But to get back to
we've been on here on all sorts of stuff, man. Suits, t-shirts.
That's it. How do you guys feel about the vaccine? Biden's touting this 100 million, and in 100 days, and like, aren't we already on pace for that? Like, that's what we've been doing. Like, it doesn't seem very ambitious. Not that I care one way or the other. I mean, I do find this shady, and I hope people take account to this. And then I'll let you go ahead, Glenn, because I saw you were going to say something. But it is trifling that Amazon is right when we inaugurate Biden as president. Now they want to help with distribution. Where the hell were they at when Trump was president? It does not matter who president is, whether you want to help with distribution. Go ahead, Glenn, and thoughts?
Interesting point there, and yeah, it's a pretty valid one. But I mean, at the end of the day, Amazon is a private entity. If they don't rock with Trump, they can do whatever the hell they want to do. I'm always going to err on the side of freedom. That's the libertarian in me, if you will. But we do have a lot going on here. What's that? You said you too?
Yeah. I agree that they should. I'm hoping people hold them accountable, not like a government regulation.
Yeah, it's something to look at. Do I think Amazon sales are going to hurt because of it, or do I think it's going to affect their volume in any way? No. Do I think Trump supporters are still going to order their Amazon and expect it to be there in 2 days? Hell to the yeah, all day.
Do gay people still eat at Chick-fil-A? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's another one too. Yeah, absolutely. For sure.
So what do you think about canceling private health care and having everybody under government health care?
Well, it was tried under the Obama administration. It did help 25 million other Americans that didn't have insurance, which is a good thing.
Sure.
That's a situation. It's going to be very subjective.
I don't think
we know all sorts of people all across the board. Yeah. Exactly. Well, and then again, all sorts of people all across the board got different results because of that, because of Obamacare. There's people that were screwed, and there's people that it really helped.
Not one blanket solution. We can't just say, everybody has to do this. It doesn't work for everybody.
And I think that's kind of a weird, I guess, agenda to have in your first 100 days. I mean, I guess it kind of coincides with the COVID vaccine.
For his first 100 days, as far as the ACA is concerned, he said build upon it.
Right.
So I don't know what that means. Now, Glenn, did you find this? Because I want to be completely honest with people out there. And I'm not trying to call this a conspiracy theory, but I tried to look up
the Trump, the impeachment and the conviction with Trump.
No, we'll get to that in a second. Okay. But no, this was just me trying to find what Biden committed to for the first 100 days is very difficult. It's very difficult.
Yeah. There's a lot of.
You have like a couple bullet points. And
right, he laid out a whole bunch of stuff, but there was nothing like rock solid saying this will be done.
Well, what I was really looking for was, because he did lay out specific bullet points, or at least in the speech that he gave a few days ago, but there was no real execution strategy behind it. There was, and I'll tell you what, I mean, from the conviction to the stimulus bill, the immigration bill, I mean, he brought up climate change. We talked about racial justice already. I mean, the recession and stuff for COVID. Any one of those things is enough for your first 100 days. So I think it's very vague in terms of.
But Glenn, I think you're hearing something different than what I'm saying. You are absolutely correct. If you go back and listen to his speech, you and I could write down all those things. What I'm talking about is media representation. When I looked up the Times, the Post, CNN, Fox, I looked up all these different things.
There's actually nothing. There's like one or two.
And they had the titles were there. Biden's first 100 days in office. And then I read it. It's like 2 paragraphs. It says 3 of the things that he said. And then it was like, that's it. And I'm like, that's not even what he said. I thought there would be one that would be he said, bing, 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 bing. And I'm like, no, now we have to be that people. Because these media sources, if they like them, they don't want things that they can catch them on. And Republicans don't want to say it because if he accomplishes certain things, they don't want to show he accomplished them. Already it's just so hyper partisan in the media. The media is the one that's supposed to watch his things. We can watch it or not. 10 years ago, we were supposed to be able to pick up the newspaper and read about the speech because we were at work. Now it's like you got to go polls, go watch it yourself. Then you can go get your ideals. What do the Republicans think of this? And, what does my side think? www.agreewithme.com. And then regurgitate everything the Washington Post said or Fox News or whoever.
Or one of the pundits,
CNN on this side. And it's like, that's a shame. So I just wanted to bring up if you had some of that same, because I didn't find a single article. And obviously we do a lot of research. I probably did 4 hours worth of research, maybe an hour and a half, 2 today, and then 1 hour, 2 other days trying to do this stuff. And I was like, let me see. Because if I had a printout of it, then I could go through and go, okay, how do I feel about this one? That's what I was hoping to do. Couldn't do it. Had to go back, watch the whole thing, write it all down. And that's bull crap.
It was difficult, but there's a part of me that appreciates, I guess, the sort of vagueness or ambiguity of what is going on or what he plans on doing, because it left a lot of room for our opinions, and it gives us some pretty good talking points and the ability to be able to bring our own personal opinions or the way our viewpoint
are working and don't know, like, where do people get? And of course, my answer would be here.
And I was getting to that, and that's where it gets very that's where the gray comes in, because a lot of this stuff is not black and white. Some of it is, but like racial justice, for example, is race, gender, you got the whole thing. That's probably one of the more black and white ones. Then when you start talking about or even like the stimulus bill is pretty black and white. But climate change, for example, there's like nothing specific as to what he plans on doing for climate change, or even like.
And it's the hardest one to prove or disprove.
Well, there's proof. The climate's changing. There's proof of that.
Oh, yeah.
No, you're talking about changing the climate change, right, Fred? You're saying
doing something about the climate change. Yeah.
How do you prove that you fixed it?
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
I think what he really means there is just obviously putting more funding towards learning more about it so that we could potentially do something about it. But that's also something that's very ambiguous. I mean, we're going to have to really do some research to see exactly over the next 4 years what amount of funding has gone toward that research, what's been done. And I don't think it's going to be something that after the 100 days we're going to even hear much about, to be honest with you. I would like to think so, but I think the big one that we really touched on is the whole racial justice piece. I don't want to really keep talking about it. I think the other sort of big one that's not going to happen quick is the conviction that's happening in the Senate in terms of Trump's impeachment. It's gonna be a process. It is something that he not only mentioned in his speech, but we did find a little bit of, I was able to find a little bit of literature on it. I wasn't able to find a lot of literature on everything. But just in terms of the conviction that's going to be happening, it's not going to be quick. I kind of want to see how you guys feel about it, see what you think. But I know at the end of the day, it's going to be a process. I know that Trump is lawyering up right now. I know he did try to create some pardons for himself. Don't know how it's going to work out. I know he was successful with 2 of them, but I'm going to kind of get your guys' opinion on that.
My first opinion is that I always try to be consistent. So the same way I felt about Trump fighting all the court systems the whole time down the line once he lost the election, I think that's stupid, and I think it's stupid what the Democrats.
Well, that's going to be one of them. They're going to be bringing them up on like the Georgia race. That's probably going to be a big one.
This is a massive waste of money, and the only reason they are doing this because they can't do anything. There's going to be no penalty to this. So what they're going to try to do is they're going to try to use this against him because they believe that he's running in 2024.
Right. I was going to say
they're trying to do this. Right. To hurt his candidacy in 4 years. Just do what you're going to do. The reality is, I spent a lot of time actually this week thinking about the whole domestic terrorism argument. And it's not that if you look at the definition of domestic terrorism, that it wasn't. Certainly the people that went into the White House and did stuff are certainly domestic terrorists. But
that's why I sat up for a second.
Is that, here's the thing though, right? Like, so is Nancy Pelosi. She is a domestic terrorist. She told people to go to people's homes. She did exactly the same thing, and people did go to people's homes. Now, can you directly connect that dot? Not necessarily. The same thing with Maxine Waters. She said when people are eating, go disturb them eating. That's domestic terrorism. So a sudden it becomes partisan. And
kind of reaching. The Maxine Waters is kind of reaching. But that's a valid point with Nancy Pelosi. As much as I don't like it, that's a valid point.
People actually interrupting people eating, like drinking their beers.
What's his name said when they go low?
We call it domestic terrorism. I mean, think of what you're saying. Domestic terrorism.
Yeah. But here's what I'm saying. Hold on, Fred. What I'm saying is we don't get to nitpick the definition if it's a person we don't like. That's what I'm saying. And both sides are
let's keep it consistent. Exactly.
Got to be consistent. And the truth is that then people did go to people's homes. People did walk on people's lawns and did domestic terrorism. So if you're going to do that and you're calling the domestic terrorism the definition that you read,
so going to someone's house and knocking on their door and disturbing, I guess technically disturbing them is domestic terrorism.
If you look at the definition, which is saying that you're using coercion to get some kind of political outcome, which is what they're trying to do. So again, it depends who's reading it. You see what I'm saying? And so
that's a loose line, but yeah, that's that in comparison to the insurrection,
If Glennon tells me, "Hey, Kenny, do you think this is really domestic terrorism?" My answer is no, I don't. Just like I don't.
Okay. Cool. All right. Cool. We're good. We're good.
So, but I don't think it's domestic terrorism for people to go walk on the Capitol. I do think it's domestic terrorism to break shit and attack people.
Okay. Yeah.
But then we go to the Black Lives Matter stuff. That is domestic terrorism. I'm just saying that I don't like playing all these politic games. I feel like you should either be for it or against it. We're either okay with people burning people's shit down or we're not okay with it.
Yeah, you can't change the wording or what you think the definition is to fit your case.
And both sides do it. I get it. Right, and so when you're talking about impeachment, I don't want to impeach. I didn't think not Donald Trump, Bill Clinton should have been impeached for getting ahead. I mean, I just go, and actually, if people knew the story, that was one of the reasons he didn't take out Osama bin Laden. So we probably could have avoided the 9/11 attacks if they happen the way they say they haven't. Then that maybe could have been avoided if Clinton wasn't getting a BJ. So I don't want to connect all these dots. Either he should be or he shouldn't be. Either he caused mass problems or he didn't. At the end of the day, it was a one-day event. People can, and again, if we knew that the people placed bombs there and that they were with that group, we don't know that. Okay? And so what we do know is that this is political. That's what it is. And so move forward. He lost, just like I would tell Trump, you lost. Move on. I'm telling the left, you won, move on. You want to bring people together, move on. Because when you come out and you say, which there's been some people that are still saying,
I think there's a point where people on the left are saying, okay, because I do believe that as a whole, as a country, America wants to move on from the Trump era just as a whole. I believe that, but I think that
that's not
well. Also, too, I think there's a point, and I think it's probably what you're going to touch on, Kenny, where people are like, okay, but this shit can't go unpunished, or it can't go. We can't just let it go because then it sets an example that it's okay.
It's all a joke. Nobody's really going to get punished. That's the whole thing.
And maybe you can say that in terms of Trump, but it's really not going to be a joke in terms of Trump and his supporters that actually went to the Capitol building that are being prosecuted. It certainly isn't going to be a joke with them.
Some of them aren't his supporters.
Yeah, they're not his supporters. The ones that have been prosecuted
you got to keep up with that stuff. A lot of these people were not his supporters, and so as that's coming up,
a lot of people were actually. You know how we talked about the silent majority? Like they didn't like Biden, they didn't like Trump. Yeah. But they, for whatever reason, believed that the election was rigged, so they were storming the Capitol building, and they thought that democracy was under attack.
Let me tell you the one part that I believe you're getting wrong, and this will maybe coming out down the road, and maybe it'll be an agree to disagree moment. A lot of these people are anarchists, so they are against our government. The Capitol is a piece of our government. They didn't care about the election. It wasn't about the election at all for a big group of these people, the ones that were breaking the stuff. These people are there.
I wouldn't say a big group. There was more of a small group. They were majority Trump supporters, and that's.
Well, we will.
There's 200,000 videos.
Yes, I know. And I've looked at the videos, and maybe we'll do a whole episode on it because I've got videos where the Capitol Police are watching two people in all black do it, and they don't look anything like they're not wearing Trump stuff. Not at all. You have people who.
Well, you got people that aren't wearing Trump stuff, but then carrying Confederate flags, and then you got people.
Again, I looked at all the videos, and anybody on here, anybody that watches this video, send me 2 pictures of people with Confederate flags. There was about 100,000 people there. Send me 2 different people. You're gonna find the one dude. He's wearing an orange, brownish vest. Same dude.
Okay.
So again, you know,
and
to
multiple
me,
pictures.
let's say that there were, because of course people want the picture of a Confederate. They had to make it a white supremacy thing when it had nothing to do with white supremacy. It had everything to do with people that
it's mighty funny. A lot of Trump supporters roll that way. That's a fact. Not all of them.
That's so not true. I mean,
yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
No, there's more Democrats that are racist than Trump, and you have no evidence to back your opinion up. You feel that way. But no, you don't. Where?
I do. Look at all of the protests. Even just look at George Floyd. Just look at George Floyd and all of the anti-BLM where you saw
anti-BLM is not racist.
I didn't say it was racist. Listen to what I'm saying. All of the anti-BLM marches where people were wearing MAGA hats and also were toting Confederate flags at the same time. And
you've already went over that
up right now.
That is a poor assumption to assume that anyone wearing a Confederate flag is racist. That's a bad assumption. I'm just telling you, it's not true.
So the only time that I would assume that it's not true, because I'll give you this. You got ignorant black people that carry that flag as well, and I'll give you that. But they're ignorant. You can't like they really knew what the Confederate flag stood for and how un-American it was and how the Confederacy wanted to succeed based on racism alone. It's very specific.
It is a symbol. Just because some people take it and use it a certain way doesn't mean that everybody has to. People that have been from the South for a long time have used that.
So there's people out there that have swastika tattoos. Is that just a symbol?
No, there's not.
Yes,
there's no that has swastika flags that would tell you, hey, I love everybody.
Bro, there's people that have swastika tattoos, brother.
Yes, tattoos. Those people do not like black people, Glenn.
Correct.
That's not the same.
Most Trump supporters. Those people that
they're Democrats. Trump supporters. That doesn't even make any sense. So let me get this straight. The guy that has the first black campaign manager, all the racists with swastika.
So you mean to tell me that somebody So you mean to tell me that the Democratic Party that since 1968 has gotten 92% minimally of the black vote, those are the people that are wearing swastikas?
No, I didn't say that. You're acting like there's 2 sides. The Democrats are the racist
I'm really not. I'm really
all the racist. All the racist. Who's the what party is the
This is what I'm saying. I think you're missing what I'm saying. You're missing what I'm saying. I'm not generalizing. I'm not listening. And it's not the majority, but it's mighty odd that I have seen people with swastika tattoos with MAGA hats on. I have seen this.
But what I know people.
But I've never seen somebody. I've never seen. What's that?
Yes, huh? What's his name came out? He was for Biden. The what's the dude that runs the? I mean, he's a nobody, but he keeps trying to act like Spencer. What's the white supremacist name? Something Spencer.
KKK.
I keep thinking of David Duke for some reason. What? I keep thinking of David Duke.
Spencer. Hold on. Richard Spencer. Right?
Richard Spencer, yeah.
He was pro-Biden. So
he definitely was.
Yeah. So I mean, that whole narrative is just bogus. The people there's bad
that's
people
one
in every
person.
point.
That's one person.
He's the leader of an organization. If you're a racist and you have one
racist means you don't like that color at all, no matter what.
That person isn't going to change regardless of candidate.
I'm just saying it's mighty odd that even at Trump rallies. Listen, bro, go on Parler. There's bro.
You can't go on Parler. It's shut down.
Yeah, it's shut down.
Right. I know it's shut down.
They got shut down.
Correct. That's what I'm. Why do you think this is?
What?
Why do you think Parler is shut down?
Parler is shut down because they have freedom of speech there.
Yeah.
That's why they got shut down.
That.
So why
Okay. Okay.
Why do you think it was shut down? Because it was the new KKK meeting spot?
They got shut down because
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much.
No, come on, Glennon. You don't believe that.
Bro, there's so many texts. There's so many texts, screenshots of actual planning of the insurrection that went down on Parler, bro.
If you're a racist, it means because you've said something racist in a text. That makes you a racist. It's not because you hate people because of the color of their skin.
Look, there's people that have said racist things verbally. There's people that have said, even black people, there's people that have said racist things, texted racist things that I do not believe are racist people, because I think people have the ability to change.
About this here. Let's focus back on Biden.
We all know that the majority of people who judge people based on solely the color of their skin is not the Republican Party. You got your parties mixed up. Now you can make the argument there's more white racists, but that is people who judge people on the color of their skin. That's the wrong party.
There's obviously more white racists, and then there's also reverse racism too. There's certainly more white racism.
There's no reverse racism. You either hate people because of the color of their skin or you don't. There's no
you know what reverse racism means? There are black people that don't like white people. But that's the definition of reverse racism.
I mean,
like racism as a whole, racism as a whole in general is white people hating people of color. Reverse racism is black people not liking white people.
Racism is race other than your own, and you just hate them totally.
Yeah, you think that you're a race, and the other people aren't. So if you're black and you think a white person thinks only these things because they're white, and so you think you're supreme to them, you're a racist. If you're white and you think the exact opposite, you're a racist. If you're a man and you think the things about women, you're a sexist. If you're a woman and you hate men because they're a man, you're sexist.
Feminist.
I mean, so just at the end of the day, the idea that, again, a black president won, and now a black vice president has just won, and you just had a Senate vote of 93-2. Like, I'm sorry, there's just no mass racism in America. There are pockets of it, just like there's pockets of hate, there's pockets of terrorism, there's pockets of a bunch of atrocious things. But most people do not wake up in the morning, not a huge segment of society that goes, this person's this color, so I'm going to act this way. And when you start,
I agree. That's not what I've said here at all, by the way. I agree. I do not think the majority of America is racist, at least not anymore. But I think there is a big, even within those pockets, there's still a big enough segment of it. And then we've had shows on it before too.
What's the percentage you think out of the Trump supporters that are actually racist?
Out of the Trump supporters,
how many? What do you think is the percentage of Trump supporters? That would.
Well, all right, so I'll give you the benefit of the doubt and say 40%, less than half.
Wow, that's a huge number.
Okay, I believe that 90% of Biden supporters are racist. I do.
Why?
90%.
I've stated my reasons,
because
and I'll
every
give my
single
sources.
person that I've spoken to that voted for Obama, when I asked them, they're like, man, he's black. Of course I voted for him. That's racist. I just talked to people the other day.
To do anything based on
said, I'm voting for Kamala. She's a sister. So that is racism. So
I agree. We've had shows on it. Any decision made based on the sole purpose of race is racist. Absolutely.
And that is litanied on, there's literally a side of our political thing. And again, I don't want to be considered Republican anymore. I don't consider myself Republican anymore. As soon as I can change it, it will be changed. I don't look at myself as a Republican anymore. I've seen
I've said it here 1,000 times. I'm a registered Democrat.
Yeah. And the Democrat side, but the Democrat side is constantly pointing out people's race. And that's what I was just getting to earlier, where I said I can't even enjoy somebody without having to do research and initially thinking, gosh, did this person get put in because of this? I just want to be able to go, you know what? Like somebody brought it up the other day. It was a great point. If there's a Superman that came out tomorrow and it was a black actor, I just want it to be a great black actor. Like, hey, man, there's lots of great black actors out there. They could definitely do it. If it's a badass Superman, 90% of America is going to like it. You could have a black Batman. You certainly could. But
I mean, that's the country we all want to grow up in. I mean, that's, you know what I mean? Like, I don't understand why anybody would feel any different, but I'm sure they're
saying is that when you're talking about just race, I believe that 90% of people literally will focus on things that are race oriented when really only probably 5% of people are like a racist bigot. Like, you know, I'm not going to, like, I wanted to do a whole segment on a show that I have where I was going to say, look, the truth is, if you have a black friend, you are probably not racist. You're probably not. I know people don't like to hear that, but the reality is if you
and I'll agree with you there. Look, most of my friends are white, but where I disagree with you, Kenny, and some people may say it's anecdotal. I have way too many white friends to say that. Is I've had to actually. And it wasn't on purpose, but I've had to correct several of my white friends for making racist statements. But they weren't intentionally trying to be racist. These are people that let me sleep on their couch when I was a bum. You know what I mean? These are people that like literally saved me. Right? So with that being said, let's take something like the crime bill, for example, that Joe Biden wrote that he catches a lot of scrutiny for. But he's gone on to say that he realized that that was not executed in the way in which it was written. And people also fail to bring up the fact that it got bipartisan support. Just as many Republicans signed off on that as Democrats.
No, it actually hasn't got failed to say that, Glennon. That's actually came up every single time I've ever heard it discussed.
Okay. Well, cool. Well, but you're in that political arena. Most people are kind of ignorant to that. And most people don't know that. It got bipartisan support. So it's not you know, Joe Biden's the demon there, right? And black people as well signed off for it. So, but my point is, you know, he, like I just said,
sold him on it.
Right. And so people want to kind of demonize him as being one of the biggest racists when that was never the intention. And so I know you had kind of commented on it before, how people will judge themselves on their intent rather than their actions. Mm-hmm. But as for what we do, especially, we have to do that. Like judges, lawyers, you have to look at the intent rather than just the action of a person.
No, I agree with. That's my whole point. Is that what I'm trying to say is that if a black person that knows some white people and has animosity about race because, and I'm not saying that they don't have a reason to do so, right? I'm not ignoring the historical issues. So when you have that, like, for instance, I was just talking to this lady, and yes, it's anecdotal, but this lady is I think she's probably 85-year-old African-American lady, and I do some work at her house. And she was talking about this guy that was, you know, I guess when she was younger, he was really old and she was taking care of him, and he was really racist. And she's like, I never let it affect the way I treated him. I always treated him the same way. And near the end, he was like, you're way better than the other lady. And the other lady was white. And what was interesting is that I am always going to listen and show empathy towards somebody in a certain situation about what they've gone through. What I've seen is that if you can go forward and go, you know what? I'm sure I've said a racist comment, just like every black person I know, I believe at certain points has said something racist in terms of the terminology or something that was socially or racially insensitive. And I just feel like that has been beat up so much to the point that we're calling these people racists. And that's where you and I think when we all grow up, we hear somebody, hey, that person's a racist. It's not that they said something that they shouldn't have said. It's that they are actually have bigotry in their heart. And these people don't want to be, you know, and it's weird because I'm not black, but I did go through it on an economic level where I had kids that were white and they were not allowed to hang out with me. They weren't allowed to hang out with me because I'm loud, outspoken, and poor. And they didn't want their kid hanging around poor little Kenny. Poor little Kenny was going to be with the troublemakers. He always hung out with this group. And I've seen him with those boys. Like, I'm the kid that nobody wanted to let their kids hang out with. So, and I heard parents say this. I mean, I had a buddy that lived right across from the school, one of these big, beautiful houses, and it crushed my heart, man, to hear somebody say that about me. Not because of the color of my skin. That person actually had darker skin than I do. They were not black. I won't get into it because I don't want to say who that person was. But That person was a darker hue than I am. And like, I was crushed. My spirit was hurt. If I would have been black, I certainly would have felt like it was racism. But the disdain for who I was because where I came from is a real thing. And that, I would agree, that is a bigger percentage of people. I'm just merely saying that we need to have those discussions. But when we have discussions where it's like people are just based on race, it's like, yeah, right. Ask some of the black Trump supporters and they'll tell you, dude, everybody here is cool. Like, this person might disagree with me. I might disagree with them. But for different, it's not like every Trump fan is this way. And that's what when Biden came out, and some other people have actually came out, it wasn't Biden, to be fair. It was a couple other people lately that have came out, and they're like, we got to eradicate these type of using words like, Trump supporters. It's like, I know 5 Trump supporters I don't even like. They don't have much in common with me. They agree with this. I agree with this and this. I'm actually, I'm like I said, I'm far more libertarian on certain things than he am. I'm not pro-Jerusalem like he is. Not that I have anything against people from Jerusalem. I'm an American first. And that means America, not Jerusalem. And so I want to put the country first. So that's what I believe. So I don't agree with Trump on that. I don't agree with Trump on, a bunch of different things. Yeah. When he lost the election, he should have said, hey, I messed up. I'm the president of the United States. If there was a dishonest election, the buck stops at me, and I should have went through the governors, and I should have made this a better system for America. I'm sorry, and I screwed up. That's what he should have done. That's my opinion.
That's my opinion too. That would have been great.
So I'm just saying that I don't like that.
Trump has said, I'm sorry 0 times. Well, I wouldn't expect that.
Right. And all these other politicians say I'm sorry when it's convenient to them. And I've never heard a heartfelt sorry from a politician in my life on either side. So, I mean, people will bring their wife up with them.
Good politicians, right?
Oh, no. Bill Clinton might have been a little bit. He was kind of forced to apologize after getting the head. But
I'm going to tell you who apologized. Kobe Bryant apologized. That's
an apology.
Right down in front of everybody. You say, I screwed up. I'm so sorry. This is never going to happen again. And then you live the life where everybody saw that he stopped going out. And he literally dedicated the rest of his life to being a father. That's what you do if you're sorry. You don't say I'm sorry and then go back and, oh, I'm sorry in front of this congregation of people that agree with you. And they're all like, oh, so great. He said sorry.
And then go kick him with Jeff Epstein.
Yeah, right. I mean, and again, I wish people would say sorry, but you can't be the only one saying sorry, or else they just use that like they're going to put that junk on repeat. See, he said he made a mistake. Oh, see, he made a mistake.
Right.
Yeah.
So what do we think, boys? His first 100 days. Do we think he's on the right path? We're going to give him time to fulfill all these statements and, hey, let's see what happens? Or do you think he's being just a disingenuous person, just trying to spit it out there just so he says, hey, look, I said it.
Well, I'll tell you. Go ahead, Glenn.
Well, I mean, again, I think just, that's a fairly quick answer. There's, as of right now, there's 15 executive orders on the docket. I think there's going to be a slew of others because, let's be honest, he's going to have to do that. He is. There's just not enough of a majority in the House.
Is he doing it just to be anti-Trump, or is he doing it for the betterment of the country?
I think there's going to be a little bit of both. I kind of touched on it earlier. I do think there's a little bit of both. I think there's going to be a greater percentage of him wanting to do it for the betterment of the country, but also too, executive orders make things happen fast. And I think the American people have a magnifying glass on his presidency right now. And I do think that he wants to show that the White House is acting and is moving things along rather quickly. So I think it's a little bit of both.
And I agree with Glenn. I think it's, I don't know if it's fair. Is the stuff, yes, anti-Trump, but I think, again, that's placating to this idea that there's two sides. Like, I don't like that. I
don't think it's anti-Trump. I'm not because if it is anti-Trump, it'll come out. It will.
Well, here's the thing: is anti-Trump isn't necessarily bad.
Right. I'm just saying if he does it, it's going to be made out to be anti.
Here's what I'm going to tell you.
It could be.
I'm going to give you some exact things, okay? And so that I can be real clear, we can go ahead and play this one back. 2 years from now at midterms when I'm talking shit, and then 4 years from now. So let me tell you, here's what I'm telling you right now. He said that people under $400,000 will not be affected on their taxes. I am going to hold him to that. Okay, I'm going to hold him to under 400,000. No one under 400,000. That's what he said. So if I make under 400,000, my taxes better not go up. He said that.
That's what he said. That's what he said.
He said he's going to get 11 million undocumented workers a path to citizenship. Yep. Let's see if he does it. Okay, I'm gonna hold him to that one. Okay, it was funny because he said he was going to pay off school debt. Now he's saying 10,000, but that was the first order. So I'm gonna hold him to paying off school debt, and he said free junior college for everybody. So let's see if he can do those 4 things. I'm not even going to hold him to a list of 100 things. Let's do those 4 things. Do those 4 things. And a year from now, or 4 years from now, we'll go ahead and look at this. 4 things in 4 years. You should be able to do it. Those are things he said. Unfortunately, he never said anything about being fiscally responsible at all, because every single one of these is a huge spending. And I'm not saying, I want to be the first one to say, Trump was not fiscally conservative the way I would be either. So, I had a problem with that too. My hope was that Trump's next 8 was when he was going to do that, but it didn't happen. So that's on him. He did not accomplish that. So Biden hasn't even said he's going to do it. So I am concerned about our debt. I've been concerned about our debt. I don't know what's going to happen with that eventually.
And I'm worried about paying off just a little, like, freaking couple $1,000 credit card bill. I couldn't imagine millions. You know what I mean? Jesus, where do you find that to pay that off?
Yeah, I got that.
Let me be real clear on something, because I think Rob might have misunderstood what I said in the chat. So I just want to clarify one thing. I don't agree with these 4 things I'm saying. I am simply saying, if you say you're going to do them, I want to see you accomplish the things that you said. I don't agree with any of them. So I don't agree with the 11 million documented workers before you have a firm border wall up. I don't agree with junior college being free. I don't agree with paying off school debt. I don't. What was a 4th thing? Oh, I do agree with not having my taxes go up under 400. I probably agree with one of those things, but those are the things he said. I want to see him accomplish those things.
Gas is slowly creeping up.
What you think, Lennon?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, he's got a lot to do. Any one of these things would take 100 days. So I really don't want to say much. I'm just going to kind of sit back, because anybody using normal logic understands that not even half of this stuff is going to get done. So I really want to see what he's going to prioritize, because that was one of the things that was also sort of vague in his speech. I think one of the main priorities is the recession / COVID, the stimulus bill. I think that's probably top on his list. Everything else is just kind of like, and if we look at his actions within the first week of his presidency, he definitely did re-enter the Paris Climate Accord. So that obviously was high on his list to do, because it's done. But, a lot of these things, I don't really think it's going to come down to, I'm doing it because it's anti-Trump, or because, it's the exact opposite of what Trump would have done. I don't think it's going to come down to that sort of a discussion. But I do believe that a lot of it is to give the American people confidence in the White House again. I think there's a lot of people that just don't have confidence in politics anymore after this past 4 years. So I think he's trying to get, I guess, a sense of normalcy.
You can't let Lennon off the hook. He's deflecting here. You better give me a couple things. I don't care if it's one.
The normalcy.
I don't care if it's one. No, you got to have some sort of accountable. Come on now. You ain't going to get away that easy. You got to give us at least 1 to 2. 1 to 2. Not even in the first 100 days. We'll give him 6 months. Give me one thing.
What do you think he's going to go after the hardest, Glenn, and that he's actually going to try to accomplish?
Again, I think he's going to try to do something in terms of the recession. I think the economy is high on his list. I think he's going to try to do something in terms of the recession and COVID-19. I don't really want to talk about the vaccine. That's something totally different. But I think in terms of the stimulus bill, I think of getting the citizens rent relief, which is a big part of that, or mortgage relief, is going to be high on his list to do. I don't know how he's going to do a lot of this stuff, just because of the funding. Again, $1.9 trillion stimulus bill. There's still a lot of gray area that goes on with that. And I think where people are kind of the gray area, if you will, is the stimulus bill and the immigration bill kind of actually coincide. Like there's like a lot of things that shouldn't be in the stimulus bill still that probably should be in the immigration bill and vice versa. So, hard
to give away.
It's really not deflection.
4 million people citizens.
What's that?
Hard to give away money and then have 11 million new immigrants or 11 million undocumented immigrants become citizens, because then once you're a citizen, you are going to be privy to all those same benefits.
Correct. So that's what I'm saying. Which could also be another reason why, in terms of oil, not allowing people to drill on federal land could be another ulterior motive to kind of curtail, in a sense, some of those expenses. But I'll be honest with you. I had no idea where this money is going to come from and how he's going to pull off a lot of these things, which is why, and we touched on it, Kenny. He did not give a lot of details. It's really sort of hard to. I mean, I've got a litany of
Yeah, I think we're a little ahead of the game here. I think this is.
I mean, you have to let some of this stuff play out, because
I think
he
what he wants to accomplish.
His initial agenda this first week was to let people know, okay, we've got some things on our bucket list that we're looking to move forward upon within the first 100 days. Obviously, he's going to have to prioritize these things, and he didn't go over at all how any of it's going to be funded, at all.
I just want us to be able to look back and say, hey, look, on January 24th, we had a show, and on that show, we said, Glenn said, who tends to lean a heck of a lot more left than I am, he was a Biden supporter. He said you were going to do this, just like I did with Trump. I said, hey, these are the things that I want Trump. And then I went down them, and he actually accomplished a lot of them. So what are you going to be able to say, hey, look, Biden didn't do this. I got to admit, dude sucks. Or, hey,
okay, cool.
This is my dude. I'm going for him the next 4.
I think the criminal justice reform is going to be a big one. I think he's going to really go after and tackle that. I will give you guys this. Trump actually started a lot of that, so I think he will actually, because one thing he's made clear is that he hasn't had any objections to what Trump started in that arena. So
we'll see if he follows through with that. That will be huge.
I think he's going to follow through with that. I think that's going to be a big one.
I think the other thing too, find out if his sorry is genuine or disingenuous, right? Hey, I'm sorry I backed that bill. Well, here's your chance to prove it, Mr. President.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a big one.
You're going to have to sell the American public that we're supposed to pay $20 billion to rehab people who are criminals. Now, I'm not saying that every criminal is inherently a criminal.
So you think that's a hard sell to the American people?
$20 billion when people are going to be wondering where our money for schools are? I think so. When you're telling me you're going to pay for everyone's junior college, if you told me you weren't going to do a lot of these things and that was the only thing you were going to do, rehabilitation.
Well, when you start talking about schools and things like that, I mean, a lot of schools come from an individual state's property tax. Like a lot of school funding comes out of property tax per state. Like it's different per state. So I don't like, I see where you're kind of going, but I don't really think that that's going to affect his agenda at all, because a lot of that funding is going to come from property tax.
$25 billion on new vaccines disbursement, $2 trillion in stimulus
money. Yeah,
possibly do it twice.
That's the thing. I don't know how he's going to do it. I don't know how he's going to.
America right now has a wine taste with a beer pocketbook.
I will tell you today, January 24th, I am firmly saying that I will give him credit if he takes care of this situation. The problem is the recidivism levels are dangerous sometimes. And so you have to be very careful when you just start releasing people and when you do programs of reimbursement. But I also believe, of rehabbing people, And again, it's not that I don't think people should have a second chance. I'm a firm believer in second chances. What I do believe, however, is that there needs to be some real firm details on that, because I believe that we're trying to put a Band-Aid on something instead of going to the cause of the problem. And I think the cause of the problem is family.
Too many laws on the books.
Too many laws on the books, families, the breakdown of the family, the laws around family law that separates the families. Those types of things are going to continue to shove people into this system. And if those people don't get fully rehabbed, doing it later is a lot harder. It's a lot harder to teach a 20-year-old why he matters than it is to teach a 2-year-old why he matters. It takes you about 3 months to teach a 2-year-old that you care. It takes you about a year to teach a 20-year-old you care. So
yeah. And then the lines get blurred too when we talk about criminal justice reform, as well as racial justice. And then we went through the whole thing there. So the lines get blurred just because of the statistics you gave earlier. Racially, there's a disproportionate number of people, a disproportionate amount of people that are in a certain community that are incarcerated. And so, it kind of blurs those lines. And you can't legislate love. So I'm anxious to see how he's going to pull a lot of this stuff
or
off.
hate. I think it's important to say that too. You can't legislate hate.
Yeah, you can't legislate hate. You definitely can't legislate hate. The objective would be to legislate love if it's possible. But
no, I'm with you. I was just making it clear that, because I think, and again, I know we got to wrap this up, so we'll close here very shortly. But I just wanted to get this point out there. One of the things that bothers me is this. It sucks because we're in a movie environment. We're in a media environment. We're in an environment where so many things are on social media and everything. The truth is, we are never going to have a country that all loves each other. We're never going to have a country without racism. We're never going to have a country without sexism or bigotry or terrorism or hate or theft or murder. And so we have to decide where that line is going to be drawn between freedom and trying to make laws to make this the best country we can. And that's the battle that the founding fathers had all the way to today. And we'll discuss those things, but we understand that it is not a perfect. We're never going to hit this right on the head.
Right.
Glenn's not going to be able to fix racism for black people.
Number one, make yourself as perfect as possible, then the rest will take care of itself.
Well, and in my opinion, and this is kind of, I know we got to wrap up, but this is something that nobody's really talking about this. I think in the African-American community, the Black community, whatever you want to call it, I think that there needs to be a focus, a huge focus on education. Like, I think that there needs to be a huge focus on getting everybody within the Black community, whether you're in a lower class.
Leadership. Got it. Gotta have Black leadership, because we can't have, and that's where I mean,
there just can't be it can't be such a huge, like where there's, there's maybe 8-10% of Black people in the upper middle class, there's 74%, right at the poverty line pretty much. And which is
single
crazy.
Mothers are never going to bring in enough money, even if the government supplements them, to close that gap. It takes
absolutely, and it does, and you're right, and it does, and it starts with the family, but there's also got to be some sort of a program too, to where if criminal justice reform really does happen, and we start seeing a lot of people being released that are locked up on like petty crimes and nonviolent crimes and things like that, there's got to be some sort of a program or something to where, because not only is the economic gap huge just amongst Blacks, but it's the education. Like when you talk to somebody that may be in the corporate world versus somebody that's working at Barnes and Noble or something, or a minimum wage job or something like that. There's the level of
and I'm not telling you, there's always a lot of Black people working at Barnes and Noble.
Well, I mean, there's a few, but yeah, and even the ones that are,
what I've always thought when I go to Barnes and Noble, wow, look at all these Black people. Look,
they're there.
I agree with you, Glenn, and of course I'm going to make a joke, but the truth is, and it's going to be said, but I really think the truth is it comes down to leadership within the community that can affect culture change. Because until the culture change lines up with the leadership, then then people go, hey, this is what we're supposed to do. Like, why are Jews tend to be so successful? Why do Indians from India, why are so many of them doctors? Because that is their culture. They do not accept lower than this. Now, I'm not saying there's not issues within the cultures there, but
Of course.
that is true. Like, I saw a lady who was telling me, you know, she got divorced and like it was so frowned upon in the Indian culture. And if she wasn't, you know, her sister, it took a long time for her sister to get back in the family because her sister didn't want to be a doctor. Like, can you imagine if you transfer that same ideal to the Black community? A lot of problems would go away.
Yeah.
And there'd be more problems because that's what I was just talking about. There's always going to be issues within everything. We're never going to get this thing perfect. But the culture, and that culture can only be cultivated through leadership. Now, typically, leadership begins in a home. It's one of the things that I lacked in my home that luckily you guys didn't in your homes. But overwhelmingly proportional, Black men are missing that in their home, and specifically in the culture. And what pisses me off is I actually watched a Monique and Steve Harvey talk about how a lot of people sell out. Unfortunately, the Black people will not call out this leadership issue because they have to hold to their culture or else they're not valuable in Hollywood, in this place, and that place. So they're facing.
See, and that kind of goes back, just loosely, that actually kind of goes back to Lark Wood's comment. You know what I mean? It's like, should I fit a stereotype? Should I dumb myself down? Because personally, I gave that shit up like 10 years ago. I had to change who I am to become the man I am today. So, and a lot of Black, and I get more criticism from the Black community than anybody else in terms of being a sellout and things like that. Why? Why do I have to be a sellout? Because I want nice things for my children.
And your family.
Because I want nice things for my children. But if I told people that, you know, I've been to prison too, like, does that make me? Does that validate my Blackness? Like, does that make me cool? Does it validate my Blackness? Or like, the whole thing is just fucked. Like, and
it sucks. I wish. How are we hitting this sweet spot an hour and 30 minutes into the show?
Yeah,
it really is,
guys. It's a topic for another show. We got more shows to come. We'll be back.
It needs to be addressed. Yeah. And you know what? We can also discuss the poor white culture because there's not a white culture, but there is a poor white culture. There is a trailer park culture. I just went and helped. I was helping somebody move, and I don't think I'm being bad saying this, but I went to go help somebody move on this past Saturday. I get there. This guy's got a trailer. On top of the trailer, it's got 3 huge holes in the roof, right?
Wow.
I'm like, damn. This dude comes over. He's like, hey, man. He's like, man, we got to move out of this house. I said, yeah, no joke. I'm like, man, look at that. He said, I know you see my roof? That's in my bed. He said, my son's roof? That's over his room. Guess where his roof is? I said, in his bed? He said, yep. He said, and then that other part, guess where that's at? I was like, in your living room? Yep. And guess what? This lady came with me that helped. And she said, sir, like, when was this from? He's like, about a year ago.
What?
Yes. A year ago. Now,
that seems like, to me, like, nobody wants to sleep in wet dampness. That seems more like an economic problem than a cultural problem. But
that's what I'm saying is that when I walked out of there, first of all, I felt bad for this dude. He had tarps up on his house. I'm like, I don't know where this guy's moving from. He's complaining about his landlord, and not to be negative towards him, but my mentality is like, dude, I'd have just moved out the day that happened. What are you talking about? Right?
Do something to fix it. Don't wait on the landlord.
But here's the thing. This isn't your house, so you don't have to fix it. People would say, well, what if you can't afford it, right? But the guy had 2 dogs. Yeah. And so I know what it costs to raise a dog, right? And so I go, well, I feel like I could help this guy, but this guy is institutionalized to think he's trailer park trash. He thinks I can't afford it. He doesn't have nobody has connected his dots, and now he's 60. He's never going to connect these dots.
Right.
But this dude's just going to go move somewhere else. And if it's miserable, it's miserable. And it's like, how do we, you can't save everybody. I'm helping him move, but I can't teach this guy how to live at 70 years old. Like, and so there's just different times where I see those things, and it's like, oh my gosh, how can we? And it's the government's responsibility to go put this guy in a self-sustaining home? No, he has the right to live in a house with 3 holes if he wants to.
That's terrible, man.
And so some people are going to be poor because some people don't actually care if they're poor. They don't like it, but they're
not going to change it. They're not going to change
it. And that's where my fear in any poor community, regardless of color, is you feel like you can't change it. So your mind eliminates that as even an option. And so you start dealing in this box that you're not even really in.
Yeah.
And we have to have that mentality change. That mentality change, it's one of the things that I really liked about Trump. If you want to talk about if I'm ranking things I like about Trump, my hope was in the Black community, when you put these organizations in that say, hey, man, if you can do this, you can accomplish this regardless of color. And it's like, I'll even give you some hookups for a little while if you're Black and you're coming from a different area to be able to get these benefits. And it's like, I'm not even against that. But then it's got to take hold or else we got to redo the strategy. And I think if you had good, strong leaders in those communities that can help lift people up, and I've seen some, so there are some there. So I'm not saying they're not there. I work with a couple down here in South Georgia. These guys are awesome. And there's one in Tallahassee that, I mean, this guy is just the salt of the earth, man. And he's a Black dude in his community busting his ass. But he only gets credit from a handful of people that are like, this is that dude. You know what I mean?
Which is sad, man. Which is sad. And I think the main difference.
Put this guy in office. We need to have guys that go, hey, let this guy lead the culture change, because there has to be a culture and leadership change, because you can't just yell at racist people loud enough to fix Blacks' conditions in this country. It's just not going to work. It's going to criticize people like myself who would attack me. And it's like, but I'm in the streets doing what I'm doing. So, you know, I mean. I
think Black people have to take responsibility for Black people, just like we did in the 40s, 50s, 60s, especially in the 40s, when economic growth amongst Black people was
great.
It was greater than whites. It was greater than whites at that time. But yeah,
even
I think that's
I believe in the 30s too.
So Glennon, let's wrap this up, boss. You go ahead and start us off here.
Yeah, man. Well, I appreciate everybody being with us tonight. You know, there's been so many things that Biden touched on that he would like to accomplish within his first 100 days that we got to about half of the things. We didn't get to all of them, and we didn't even really break down the executive orders. But I think you guys get to the point that, you know, a lot of these things, I think it's going to come down to funding. He does have support on both sides for several of these ideas, but there's things that are going to need a little push as well too. And like I kind of touched on a little earlier, people are going to have to be buddy with Mitch McConnell to get these things done and to get legislation passed and to get some of these bills passed as well. But you know, there's a lot to happen in the next 100 days. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. What do you think is the #1 topic that Biden should be tackling? I know we didn't even get to like mask mandates and things, which the Paris Climate Accord actually instated, and you know we didn't touch on certain states that have entire businesses that are closed, shut down due to COVID. We didn't even get to that. So you know, there's just a lot to unpack, but leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. Again, thanks for being with us. Happy Sunday. I hope you guys enjoyed all your football today, and we will catch you guys in the next one.
Kenny.
First of all, thank you, Glennon. Thank you, Fred. Thank you for those that joined us today. Here's what I got for you guys tonight is that we do need to hold people accountable. We didn't get to today that, you know, you put out a mask mandate. You say it's going to be a federal mandate that everybody on federal property wears a mask, and then Biden comes out with a mask. I don't think that's good leadership. These are the same things that the media would have crucified and did crucify our last president for. But here's the thing that I want to get to just in closing tonight is that at the end of the day, it's not enough to say, hey, everybody come together. It's like my side won, so now we should all be happy. If you know a Trump supporter, you tell that person that you love them and you hope that you guys can come to some agreements and be friends and maybe have some good discussions and maybe understand, well, what was it that you really liked about Trump? And then that person can tell you what they really liked about him and say, well, what do you really like about Biden? And you guys can have some discussions without the idea being that you hate each other. This narrative that there's this big group of hateful people that is just floating around of Trump supporters is a myth. Now, you might not feel that way, but I'm just telling you, reach out to the Trump supporters that you know and ask them, and they'll tell you. And hopefully, if that person's a jerk, then man, take them out of your circle. But I love my Biden supporters that are on my page, and at the end of the day, I hope that Biden is our president. That's the way it goes. So I'm going to support President Biden as our president. I'm going to challenge him just like I challenged the things that I didn't like that Trump did. No one's going to be perfect. And my hope for us as Americans that we can come together in terms of being open to discuss with each other the things that might make this country greater, because that is where we're going to get the solutions from. We're not going to get the solutions from one person. We're going to get solutions from a congregation of people shooting ideas back and forth that we many times disagree with initially, that we can come to these solutions. I have certainly listened to Glennon say certain things and thought, those maybe I've got this wrong. And Glennon has told me that he's heard me the same thing in the inverse. It's going to happen. And our goal should be to become together in ideals. We don't need to all agree with morals and values and all these things, but we should be able to have ideas and talk about them together, because if we all want a better world, then we should all hear each other discuss. And we thank you guys for joining us tonight. And, we'll have it more streamlined in the future. We're getting back in this thing, and we're really excited to bring you content. So please tell your friends about it. We'd love to get your feedback. Let us know what thoughts you have in the comments below, and have a great night, you guys.
Glenn and Kenny, thank you guys for both coming in tonight. Appreciate your time and your research. It does take a lot to bring you guys these topics with correct data and correct input. So much love to you guys. To the audience, thank you for tuning us back on. I know it's late on a Sunday. You had football on. You still joined us. We really appreciate that. If you ever want a topic discussed on our show, reach out to us on Facebook. Our Facebook page is on the stream that we had tonight. You can reach out to us on email, contra.dictions.us@gmail.com. Please, the more you give to us, it gives us more to talk about on the show. Comments during the show. On point tonight. You guys really brought it. We really appreciate that. And as far as the topics tonight, hey, look, listen, I'm all for unity, but unity doesn't mean conform. What is it?
Conformity.
Yeah, conformity doesn't mean that, right? Like, that's what makes us great as a species, right? We don't have to agree with each other, but we have to respect each other. And in most cases, we can do that. Let's be adults. Hey, look, listen, if you don't agree with me, that's fine, but make me agree with you. Show me your points. I'm not just going to shut you off because you don't agree with me. Let's get back to having real conversations. And that's what we were trying to do on this show for you guys. Have real conversations about real topics. So again, we appreciate y'all tuning in. Much love. And we'll see you again on the flip side. Have a good night, America.